So busy times.
Yes,
busy times on the Hill and the Pentagon. We also just got out of Sierra Space.
Yeah.
Yesterday you were there talking on the congressional panel, and the day prior, on Tuesday, you published an op-ed arguing for East Coast basings for F-35s, specifically in the Virginia Beach area.
That's right.
You made the same argument at Sierra Space. Why is that move necessary, and what sort of infrastructure upgrades would be required at that air station if that did happen?
Yeah, well, good morning, and thank you very much for having me. And just great to be with you all, and what a great event it was yesterday at Sierra in Space. And thank you for just kicking this off with my passion project since I've been in Congress. This is my second term. I represent Hampton Roads area, so Virginia Beach, and we have the Atlantic Fleet there. Norfolk is just outside my district. I have Naval Air Station Oceana, which is the East Coast Master Jet Base. I also have Little Creek, which is home to a lot of our Navy SEALs. And then we have Dam Neck, a lot of intelligence community there. So for me, and as my background, just as a 10-year Navy veteran, I flew H-46s and H-3s, so I was helicopters, but married to an F-18 pilot who served for 20 years. And we have our son, who's a Naval Academy graduate, who just selected jets out of flight school. So it's kind of a family tradition for us. In addition to the people that I represent there in Hampton Roads, a large Navy family there, our friends, a lot of their children are now entering the service. So that district really cares about the Navy and especially naval aviation. And so for me, I've grown up at that base. That was my last duty station, was there. I flew H-3s in a search and rescue capacity. So I've kind of watched the transition of that base. And that base had been on the BRAC list and then was taken off. We actually moved the F-18s up to Oceana, to Virginia Beach from Cecil Field, which was in Jacksonville. That was back in the 90s. So it's been a long time, but we have to continue to progress. What is next? What is next on the plate for naval aviation? And the F-18s that are there right now are doing a great job. We've got some legacy Hornets, we've got Super Hornets, but we just have F-18s there. So what does it look like next step? And there's a lot of talk about, even I appreciate your question that you just asked about unmanned aircraft, and I would say too soon to tell if you want my answer. Okay. But of course, I'm a pilot advocate, so I don't want to put my whole profession out of business. But we do need to think about what's next, and what is next, and what is here right now is the F-35. And so we see the Navy integrating F-35s on the West Coast, and there's a lot of focus on the West Coast right now, appropriately, because we know that the next fight is more than likely would be in that region with China. And so preparing for that, we have put, the Navy has planned for squadrons 1 through 8 of F-35s at Naval Air Station Lemoore, which is the West Coast Master Jet Base. There's just two. There's East Coast and a West Coast Master Jet Base, mine in Virginia Beach and the one in Lemoore. And we visited Lemoore last year just to see what that looked like. And the base looks awesome out there. They're doing a great job. They have beautiful new hangar spaces. They have a surplus of housing, their community, just facilities and whatnot. Even their barracks they look great. So we know that money follows the new toys, right? And so I'm seeing that happening on the West Coast. And the Navy does not have plans on the East Coast at my East Coast Master Jet Base for F-35s right now. So since I've been in Congress and just really understanding what that would look like to my base, which I see struggling, I see our base, our housing is inadequate. I have less than 50% that's actually livable on the unaccompanied side. My CDC Child Development Center has over 1,000 kids on the waiting list. I have 6 hangar doors that don't close. I have roofs that need repair, that leak, the mold issues that I continue to hear about when squadrons return from deployment. It's not acceptable. So I, too, want to be a part of this discussion as a person who represents that base. There's no better way to get that funding to come to our district, to come to that base, than to have plans for the F-35.
So whose ear or ears are you bending for this issue, both the F-35
Everyone
and maybe...
I can get a hold of, so all of you, and I want you to tell your friends, and everybody that's got a star on their shoulder, I try to get in front of. We have the privilege of having a lot of meetings with military leadership just in this congressional capacity. We went to Tailhook last year, so if some of you have heard, Tailhook is like the Naval Aviation Convention for jet squadrons. We have National Helicopter Association for the helo guys, and actually there was some helo presence at Tailhook, but we went last year, and I went for the sole purpose of just getting in front of everybody that again had extra stars or stripes on their uniform. It's a top-down decision, right? And right now there's a strategic laydown plan that will be hashed out this year from the Navy. And the Navy everybody's in a kind of a time of transition right now with different administration, and the Navy is not immune to that. We have a new Secretary of the Navy. Right now we're awaiting a new CNO. So there's some time of transition right now, and I need the leadership that we've had in place, but then also the new leadership to just understand what this looks like. Because think about it too in the sense of current events and what happened on Israel on October 7th. We sent 2 aircraft carriers over to the Red Sea right after that event. We sent the Ford and the Eisenhower, both from Hampton Roads, with people that live in my district, the sailors, men and women. And they kept the peace there, right? We turn on the news and we watch what's happening, and we watch even when the Houthis were taking off and dropping bombs in Yemen. I mean, they show the aircraft carriers. They show aircraft carriers from my district. They show F-18s taking off of these aircraft carriers. So there should be no question about the strategic importance of this mobile air dominance that we can send on tons of steel. We can send air power to any part of the world quickly. So it's so important that we protect that asset. But, we had Indo-PACOM yesterday for a hearing on Armed Services Committee.
And you just met with Admiral Paparo, too, correct?
That's Admiral Paparo. And so talking to him just about the importance of the East Coast, because, again, I understand the focus on the West and the China fight, and that's what he's prepared for every day, to fight tonight, right? That's his job. That's what we pay him to do, he says. But he's going to need other assets. He's going to need the Atlantic Fleet as well. And I need the most prepared carrier air wings that I can get.
To your point about the new administration in this moment of transition, President Trump and Secretary Hegseth this week teased a $1 trillion defense budget. Do you support that number, and is it even realistic?
That's a big number, right? I mean,
I've been,
ever since I've been, hard to even comprehend, as long as I've been in Congress, and every time I got a camera in front of me, I would say the defense budget is inadequate. Was hovering around, 886, 890, around there. So I saw it because I can't do the things that I want to do in my district. We don't have enough ships. I could talk a long time about shipbuilding and that focus that the administration has placed on a new Office of Shipbuilding. This is very exciting because our Navy is struggling with just below 300. We've been decommissioning more ships than we're building. Chinese Navy has been racing up and past 400. Secretary of the Navy yesterday at the breakfast at Sierra and Space said that the Chinese built more ships last year than the United States has built since World War II. I can tell you that we have the same number of ships in the year 2025 that we had in 2003. And we had a 30-year shipbuilding plan around the year 2000 that really hasn't panned out. We can't keep doing things the way we've traditionally done things with our shipbuilding and ship repair industry. And I'll tell you the main reason, and not to deviate from the aviation side, but is workforce. I mean, it's workforce, and the skilled trade piece. And we have to do better than that. And we did really good work last Congress on some of our quality of life, quality of service issues that our military struggles with. We had a great bipartisan task force that we looked for 9 months at why we couldn't meet our recruitment numbers, why we couldn't retain the people we need in our all-volunteer force. And we identified really 5 key areas. Paying compensation was number 1. That's why you saw a 15% pay raise this past year for E1 through E4, our junior enlisted people. We identified housing, again, problematic really throughout the country. Childcare, not enough of it. Healthcare, always important, always something that our military families deserve the best of. And then spouse employment, because these guys move every 2 to 3 years. So how are we taking care of our spouses? We identified those things for active duty, and we put 29 amendments came out of the House and Senate to the tune of about $5 billion. We put really good, meaningful changes in place, which I was so proud. It was a great effort. But we left out a few key areas. We left out our civilian mariners. We have a big military sea lift command right now that fills a lot of gaps that we are trying to fill with our lack of active duty Navy ships. We have military ships or civilian ships that are manned by civilians, by CivMars. And we left those guys out of the discussion because they too are hurting with the recruitment retention piece. And we also left out our skilled tradesmen. We left out our people that work in our shipyards and shipbuilding. It's a team effort out there. If I don't have all these pieces, then I can't have my Navy do. I mean, I know we see the aircraft carriers, but there's a whole battle group that goes with those carriers for protection, for supplies, for a lot of things, including submarines and aircraft. So it's really a team effort out there, but we got to do better in a lot of different ways. So back to your $1 trillion question.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, trillion is a lot, right? I don't know if they're including this gold dome that's being talked about, and I don't know exactly what that entails. I would say we need more, but the name of the game right now is really finding places to tweak and reduce spending. So
how's that congruous with like the DOGE cuts and then the 8% drill the Pentagon's doing and then the civilian resignations?
I applaud the prioritizing of the defense budget. I will say that I think that is necessary, again, because it's expensive to build things like submarines and aircraft carriers and ships. But there's a lot of pushback even on my side of the aisle. You know, there's people that I feel are even teeter towards isolationism, and they really just don't want to spend any money, and that's the wrong thing to do right now, right? I mean, it's peace through strength, and we see that the world has gotten more dangerous. We saw not just Israel, we see what's happening in Ukraine with Russia. We know the China fight is potentially next. So it's not the time to back down from that. So, and I know that Secretary Hegseth met with Speaker Johnson, brought over some of our the right members to the Pentagon last week, just to I hope, talk about what that looked like for defense and understanding the need to spend money in defense. A trillion's a lot. Well, I'd like to see a little more outline. What does that look like?
What's actually in that trillion?
Like housing for Oceana and F-35s for Oceana, the things that I, as the representative from that district, really care about. But there's a lot more to do on the quality of life side. We have to take care of the people first, but you have to give them the resources they need, and the Navy has expensive toys.
We have about 2.5 minutes. I'm gonna get greedy and try to.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm gonna try and get 2 questions in here. A lot of the conversation about future aviation is about unmanned and autonomous tech. Robo wingmen, basically. You're a former pilot. Mm-hmm. Would you trust smart machinery to have your back in the cockpit?
Yeah, we have to, right? But it's not like it shows up one day and we fly a mission with it. There has to be an integration process.
How do you build that trust?
Pilots have to build that trust. That's how you do it. And right now, we are not there yet. We still have just our piloted at my air base, F-18s, that they're doing their mission. So, but there's so much talk, and it's exciting from the HASC side, the Armed Services side. We went to Silicon Valley last fall and met with defense tech industries to understand their challenges of integration of that into our warfighters and what that looked like. But we have to start that process, because you can't just snap your fingers and make that happen. And I know that they can identify, even when you debrief about the Red Sea and some of the challenges with working with our allies and unmanned and what that looked like. But we have to have those actually come to the warfighter, and on top of that, the energy needs that all of that technology, that AI, the autonomous equipment is going to need. We need to talk through what that looks like too.
Okay, last question here. We're up the road from DCA, where the mid-air collision with the Black Hawk happened a couple months ago. You put in a bill about crash avoidance systems. I'd like a quick update maybe on that bill. And then yesterday, the AP reported the Army will fly fewer flights with ADS-B out data turned off. Do you think that's a right move or a step in the direction?
Yeah.
Step in the right direction? Excuse me.
Yeah, too much helicopter traffic in a civilian aircraft. I mean, that was such a tragedy. But I introduced a bill with Congressman Tom Barrett, who's an Army helicopter pilot, the Military Helicopter Training Act, to look at that feasibility study, to look at if we could put ADS-B in all of our military helicopters, because we don't have that right now. We don't have that capability. Would that have been helpful? I hope so. I mean, there was, I think, a lot of other factors, and I haven't seen the final report come out yet. But in busy civilian airspaces like that, we need all the safety backup we can get. So I would love to see that in our military helicopters. Last word with 10 seconds. If you could fly anything, helicopter, airplane, et cetera, what would it be? I loved my H-46. It was a tandem rotor helicopter, so we had 2 rotors front and back, and it was so maneuverable. I mean, you could spin that thing around on its nose. It was awesome. So we could vertical replenish from the supply ship to the other ships in the battle group. We'd do it for 10 hours at a time. You just swing your tail around. You pick up one thing from one ship, drop it off at just a sky crane. I mean, it was some of the best flying I ever did. So it was a lot of fun. The best years of my life with some of the greatest Americans. So awesome. We're going to have to leave it there. Congresswoman, thank you for your time today. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.